to the Arkansas Shrimp Tank Podcast video post-show wrap-up. I'm David Sims here with my co-host Matt Haas. We just finished a great podcast with Dr. Fitz Hill, the executive director of the Ford Center for Economic Development, and it was a great show, Matt. A lot of great highlights. And Matt, why don't you share a little bit about what the show covered and some of the things that we...
Dr. Fitz Hill is always fun to listen to and hear his stories, but we covered some of his time in coaching and then how he left coaching to become the president of Ouachita Baptist College, and that's really what the show was geared around, on social entrepreneurship and how he used his skills there and to create tremendous change in that school and that community, and then leading into what he's doing today. So check out this video for some of the highlights.
Yes, and always remember you can catch the podcast at iTunes and at arkansas.shrimptankpodcast.com. Going to prison. So talk a little bit more about that and how, really how both communities, black and white communities, can come together on this critical issue of needed prison reform.
Well, I mean, when you look at the things going on in our society, I think you have to look at what's causing our large incarceration of young people today. Mm-hmm. Why does the United States of America incarcerate more people than any other country?
Right.
We have to look at
world.
It's
like crazy.
We have to look at our laws, but more importantly, we have to look at why our young men making the choices they're making. Mm-hmm. And I really believe that people desire three things: to be loved, to be fed, and then to be given direction. And that's not happening.
Right.
And you just think about Jesus.
Yeah.
What did he do? He loved them. Mm-hmm. He fed them. And then he cast them out.
That's right.
Fed them. Yeah.
That's right. So today, there is mental illness taking place, but I'm thinking people get on the wrong path because they're not loved. Okay, they're not fed physically, right, and sometimes even spiritually. Yeah. And then so they don't know what to do. And listen, God, if you look at the Bible, I call it the manual. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Let me ask you this question: how many times do you buy a new car or an iPhone and you don't open up the manual? So you try to use it, and you think, and then you come back, you don't maximize it because you haven't read the instructions.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, half of the reason because we have become disconnected from the manual, the Bible, mm-hmm, and we're making decisions. If you go back in and you read just the 10 Commandments, your life is much clearer just based on the action that you take with that. And so, much of our prison growth is because of the fundamentals of raising our kids.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And we have to get back. It's a two-headed monster now. We got two different generations out there we're dealing with. So how are we going to clean this up for our babies? And then how are we going to help give treatment to those who have been allowed to function like this for, 30, 40 years?
Right.
So we have that problem. So that's why, men continue to make mistakes.
Right.
And even young ladies because of making mistakes because they desire that same love, fed. We're all humans. And when our basic needs are not met, we go someplace to try to meet them, and sometimes that's through violence. And your prison population is not, what we can see, is not going to be cured by building more prisons.
That's right.
We're gonna have to impact the human soul and the human heart for transformation, and that's what the Exodus program does, and that's what we're trying to do with our prison reform here at Arkansas Baptist College and other colleges that are trying to reach out and touch people who haven't had those opportunities.
Yeah, Brian Stevenson at where he has his book Just Mercy has an incredible section on all the different ways you can get involved, and you're leading it here along with others in this local community. Well, I think Matt has the last question for this segment.
One more
so we
question.
Can finish
so, as I've gotten to know you over the last few years, my perspective has changed a lot. Just trying to understand what it's like growing up in the African American community and being a minority, because it's hard to relate sometimes. So you have to spend time thinking about it and talking to people and trying to understand. But I guess what I'd like to ask you for our listeners is, what was the hardest part of your life growing up as an African American in Arkadelphia, Arkansas, and then becoming a coach, and then a president of a college and a community leader, just all that, those life experiences, what was the hardest part mentally and emotionally for you to overcome?
You know, I've been fortunate, and I think this was true because of my parents, the relationships that they had. I never really had an awful experience growing up in Arkadelphia where it was negative. There were some things based on race, and I mentioned this in my book. One of the things that really that for some reason I never forgot is that the coach and I remember the team, Glenn's Truck Stop, did not draft black players. And, you know, I didn't understand that because that was in our Babe Ruth League, 13 through 15, because I had been playing with many of those white guys all the way up through Deputy League and Little League, but he wouldn't draft an African American. That really didn't sit well with me because of that. And when we played them, I wanted to beat them really, really bad.
You want to beat them bad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just being honest. I mean, because at that point, I just remember that being a person who thought he was superior,
Right.
you know, and didn't need, you know, rather than recruiting the best talent, you just wanted, he wouldn't draft any black guys.
Right.
And so that's probably the thing, you know, I think you grow up a few racial incidents, but they don't log in my mind like that playing Glenn Truck Stop team. I remember the name, you know, team 13 that would not do that. But then, you know, once I made it through and going back, you know, Louisiana was a little bit different for me, going there for a minute, but my mother had really taught me how to navigate that and make sure, you know, just like I teach my son now about, okay, if the police stop you, I mean, those type of things, you know, that in America, that when I see things happening, that I'm having to teach my son about.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and I think sometimes, you know, people get offended by that when you're saying, I understand that you may not comprehend this, but this is a real life issue, and I'd rather prepare my son for what could happen rather than him think it doesn't happen and don't teach him what happened, then he make a bad decision, and then it cost him, you know, his life.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's real.
Right.
You know, that's real, and that's some things that I think that as the majority race may not conceptualize, as you said, because you know it's different. Now, on the flip side of that, if you visit Africa, you will see what it means to a community to walk around and only see a few of you that look like you.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
right.
Then it changes the mindset. Then if it flips the switch a little bit. But here's the deal: we're all God's people.
That's right.
All right, and God, He made us all different for a reason. This would be a very boring world if everybody was the same.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so let's understand, if everybody understand their value and maximize their potential to the very best of their ability and get in God's plan for their life, like Drake said, God's plan, you know, understand what that is and tie it into that and realize this life is not about how much money you make, even though, you know, God gives us an opportunity to do that.
Right.
Yep.
You know, but how many lives can you impact
With
the money you make? That's where the transformation takes place. And God, all of God.